Hi, it's Lulu, compulsive overeater. Talking about amends still. I'm thinking about one. This is a real interesting one. So this coworker that I had now, if you can imagine sitting next to somebody about 3 feet away for a dozen years, every day, 9 to 5. It's somebody that I see more than anybody else in the world, you know. My family at home. I mean, there's no one. So her and I were very, very, very close friends, and for most of the time, we had a really great time. Oh boy, we were silly and fun, and um, we were the same age, and we don't live near each other. We're probably about an hour drive from each other, so we almost never saw each other outside of work. But every morning, you know, it would just be so fun to show up and be together for the day. Um, Sometimes we would be hugging. I'd be leaving for the day. We'll hug goodbye, right? And like somebody come out of their office and they're like, "Is everything okay?" They're figuring somebody's given somebody a hug because they need consoling. It's like, "Oh, everything's fine. We're just hugging." They're like, "Oh, okay." you know, it's just crazy. But we were very, very close. But I did have um, judgments. She was opinionated. We conflicted in some ways sometimes. I was going through recovery. She was having a hard time because we used to, go out to lunch sometime and have a couple of pops. We'd have a couple of, well, she'd have a glass of wine. I'd have like three because I'm an alcoholic. She's not. We'd get cakes and she'd eat a slice and I'd eat the rest. But anyway, we ate together and drank together, and she couldn't see why I couldn't just eat and drink like her. She didn't get it. And um, anyway, so one day, without going into detail because it's not that important, one day um, we had a serious blowout, a serious disagreement on something. And um, she she got like, she was looking at me and like the veins were popping out of her neck, and she looked like she was gonna friggin' like lunge over the desk and like strangle me. And actually she said something to that effect, and it was very disturbing. And I found myself getting quiet. Then the next day at work, we were working in silence. The next day we were working in silence. The next day we were working in silence. And I'm just thinking, I don't know what to do with this. Like, this is, so she came up to me after a couple of days. She came up to me and she's like, Louie, used to call me Louie. Louie, stand up for a minute. So I wanted to say, get away from me. But I stood up and I looked at her, and she was like, her eyes were all welled up, and she said, I'm I'm really, really sorry. I'm really sorry for what I did. I don't know. I don't know what was the matter with me, and it was wrong, and just I'm really sorry, and I hope that we can recover this relationship. So she hugged me. So I'm standing there being hugged by her, and I said, uh, well, I was like, let's just see how things go. I just wasn't feeling the forgiveness. It was just, she kind of took things to a different level. It was just really uncomfortable. So then, to make a long story short, I there was another job that came available on another floor, and I applied for it and I got it. I wanted to not work next to her anymore. And so I went on to that other job, and because nothing was ever the same with us. And I went on to that job. I would never have went and got a different job in that firm. I was happy where I was, but something changed for me that day. So then I'm on the other job, and whenever I would see her around the office, anywhere in the cafeteria, I would always say hi. I was very cordial. And then one day, now this is in recovery, um, past my step work. Um, I was grateful that I didn't lunge for her back, lunge at her the way she lunged at me. I'm glad I didn't grit my teeth. And maybe that was all because of recovery, the way I um, interacted with her and the way that I was able to not respond. I would say that was all recovery, because it likely could have got ugly. So I was really grateful for the recovery I had at that time. But what came to me a few years later um, was in further in recovery, enlarging my spiritual life, getting closer and closer to God, and thinking about still bumping into her from time to time, learning that her husband was sick, and that he was struggling with a serious illness. And she just adored him. And I worked with my sponsor, and I discovered that I really felt I needed to make an amends for not accepting her apology. How cool is that? I was like, why didn't you accept her apology? Why were you so closed down to that? So imagine making an amends for not accepting an amends. I wasn't sorry for anything I did and said in that whole encounter. Nothing. I didn't lunge at anyone. I didn't grit my teeth. I didn't call her names. Uh, uh, I didn't do anything that I needed to apologize for. She did. And she did. She did. She was the one that was in the wrong. And she apologized. And I was like, I just didn't have it in me to accept that apology. And so I wanted to make that right. I wanted to make that right. So what I did was I got a really nice card, and a blank card with a really pretty um, print on the front, an empty card. And I wrote to her that I wanted to apologize to her for not accepting her apology that day. That the relationship was clearly very important enough to her to bring herself to that point to apologize, and that I just shut it down, and that the relationship was worth saving. And it was, I don't know whether it was pride or I don't know what it was. Anyway, I just outlined that, and I said, I really, going back, I should have hugged you as tight as you hugged me, and we could have moved on. We definitely could have moved on. And at that moment, it was in the middle of the summer, and I used to share my garden tomatoes with her all the time. Always brought her in garden tomatoes. And so I had a big basket. I brought in a big basket because she worked days and I worked nights. Now I was working nights, so we never worked at the same time. I brought in a big basket of big, juicy, ruby red garden tomatoes that I just picked, and I left them on her desk because she was already gone home, with my note and a card on the top. And then I heard from her the next day. She emailed me, because we don't see each other, just how much it meant to her. It just meant the world to her. And because there was always this, there was never, the tension wasn't there, but there was a presence of that was always there. And then it felt like it dissipated. And then her husband passed away. And like a year later, and she was just distraught. And I was able to go to his wake and be there for her. I met her mother I never met. I met her sister I never met. All these people that I feel like I knew, because her and I were like two peas in a pod, the two of us, for a dozen years. So she knew everything about my kids and everything. I knew everything about her husband, her mother, her sister, everybody. And and of course, now here it is, you know, two years after that falling out. And I was there meeting her mother, and she's like, "Yo, Louie, oh, it's so nice to meet Louie. I've heard so much about you." And I don't think she ever told her family about our falling out, which was great. And her sister, she's like, "Yo, Louie, oh, Louie," all her best friends were there that I knew every single one of them, never met them, knew every single best friend that they've been friends for 40 years. They're all at the wake, and they're like, "It's Louie, oh, it's Louie," so this is how profound a relationship that we had. And what a shame that I wasn't in a position at that time to accept that apology, and that I did get another chance to do that. So that's just a different example. I mean, there might be something today that I need to clean up, that it's not on my radar yet, from something, and it will come when it comes. And for that, it just came when it came.